I just feel like I'm always like doing so much and I'm like working so hard, just so overwhelmed. I feel like I'm like failing because I'm getting imposter syndrome and I feel like I'm not good enough and I'm like pumping all this content and it's like, do people even care? Like, do people even fucking care what I do?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Eczema Warrior podcast. This episode is long overdue. I have been thinking about sharing a life update and sharing some of the lessons I've been learning over the past year, months and months ago, maybe back in June. But I kept waiting and waiting and waiting because I was, first of all, afraid to share some of the lessons I've been learning this year because it's been really hard. And I was a little bit afraid of being vulnerable because, as you guys know, my whole story has always been around my eczema healing journey, going through TSW, my health issues, but I've never really talked about like my mental health and how things have been since recovering from the worst of my health problems, which is when I was going through TSW and eczema. And I thought today would be a good time to share a bit of a life update and also share with you guys what I've been learning over the past year. By the way, I can't believe it's already November. 11 months have already passed by. We have one more month left of the year. Absolutely crazy. But I thought this would be a good episode for me to share some of the challenges that I've been experiencing this year. And it's actually less about my health, but more about my business and my self-worth and how I feel about myself and my work and my clients. And so there's a lot to uncover, but I feel like this is a good episode to share because I've always been told that you guys like it when I share the real raw version of me and the real life experiences I'm going through because at the end of the day, I'm also human. There are stuff that happens in my life that I don't share on social media because obviously with social media, I have to make sure that everyone else is doing okay with their health, with their eczema. So I tend not to share things about myself, if that makes sense. But I know that's a limiting belief because I know a lot of you feel that you can relate to me a little bit more when you hear that I also go through shit too. I don't know if anybody has noticed, but this whole year I've shown up, but I also haven't showed up as much as I used to a year ago or when I first started my eczema gut health business back in 2020, end of 2020. Over the past year, I've noticed myself to be more and more afraid to show up to talk about eczema, to talk about gut health, to talk about just like my life behind the scenes because I was so afraid of people judging me. I don't know. I just had this like fear of not being good enough on camera, which is crazy because obviously this is all in my head and it's something that I've been trying to work on with my therapist and figure out like why do I feel so scared to show up online. Anyways, before I get into like why all of this is coming up in the past few months, let's do like a recap of the past year. So my last life update was actually November. I remember this, November of 2023 last year. And this is when I got out of a very abusive, I would say, and toxic relationship that was very short term. It was a few months of last summer, but that relationship really sucked the energy out of me during that time when I was with that person. And then I didn't realize how much it affected my mental health and my business afterwards. I'm the type of person where it's like when something happens to me, I like let go of it pretty easily. I'm like, it's fine. It was an experience, move on. I never hold grudges. I never think anything is a waste of time, or I never think that I regret being in that relationship because everything that happens to you is always something that you need to learn about yourself so that you can grow and become a better person. And so last life update back in November 2023, I was leaving Europe and going into Asia. And the whole reason why I went to Asia, I don't remember if I shared this in the episode, but the whole reason I even ended up in Asia in the first place was because my ex at the time was living in Asia. And so I literally dropped everything. I was living in South America at that time, left my friends to go live with this guy in Asia. And so when we had broken up, before we got to Asia, because he was also a digital nomad and we worked online, and we broke up, and then I spent 6 months in Asia. So from November up until, no, sorry, longer than that, November up until June, because June is when I went back home to Canada. I spent November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. So like 8 months, I would say, in Asia. And it was honestly probably the hardest time of my life since starting my business. And the reason why I say since starting my business is because I've been really fortunate with my business. Since starting in 2020, I've done pretty well and always been able to sustain my lifestyle and live in Canada, which is a very expensive country. And it's all been great. I've been very grateful to be able to serve people and serve my clients. And I'm being very, very vulnerable and being very transparent that I typically don't like to share about these things. I'm like, I don't know if it's like a good thing to share, but I feel like it's a time. I've never hit so low in terms of revenue with my business. And of course, with the economy not doing well in the recent years, obviously like that played a role. But what really shook me was the amount of work that I was putting into my business and feeling like that wasn't working and it wasn't helping my clients and I wasn't changing lives anymore. And it went beyond just like the monetary value. Because at the end of the day, one of the lessons I actually learned is to not feel like my self-worth is based on how much money I was making. And it's something that I had to work on because it actually comes from my childhood traumas and childhood experiences when it comes to money and finances. In my family, it's always been a lot of arguments, lot of fighting, things like that. So I was always scared to lose money. I was always scared to feel like somebody was going to steal my money because there was a lot of stuff with that growing up in my home. And so when I went from being quote unquote successful and hitting my first 6 figures within 8 months of starting my business and then a complete 180, it was just like shocking to me because I was like working overtime. I was pumping out content. I was showing up. I was doing all the things, but it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I had made 2024 to be the year where I served the most clients. I helped the most people in the world. I wanted to gain more followers. I wanted to it was all vanity metrics at the end of the day, right? And so the reason why I'm sharing this is because this is the reasons why I felt not good this year and actually very horrible because I had this vision of doing well in terms of my business and not achieving that. I don't know if any of you guys listening can relate, especially those who are business owners or you're very ambitious. When you don't achieve your goal, and honestly, even if you're someone that's just listening because you want to heal your skin, this will also apply as well. You have this vision of wanting to do so well and heal your body and heal your symptoms. And then you do everything, literally blood, sweat, and tears. You're grinding, you're working, you're eating the right diet, you're seeing tons of practitioners, you're investing in yourself, and then nothing happens. And you just feel so empty and you're just drained from doing all this work and you're struggling really to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's literally how I felt this whole year. I just felt like I was pumping out content, I was doing things, but I was hearing crickets. I got a client complaint this year that was not good. I struggled a lot with that mentally. And it was just a lot this year. I don't think I've cried this much in a year in my life. Maybe when I was younger, because actually, that's a lie. When I was younger, and I'm going to create a podcast episode on this, but when I was younger, I came from a very abusive family, emotionally abusive and physically abusive. And so I used to cry a lot and went through a lot when I was a kid. And I've always been that person who I would say I'm pretty strong minded. I just get on with it. I don't try and cry because I wasn't allowed to cry when I was younger. And I just continue to push through. And my coping mechanism when I go through stuff is I just overwork and I work more so I can get my mind off of what I actually need to work on. That's actually one of the lessons I want to share. But I don't think I've ever cried this much this year in 2024. I have so many times where I would wake up in the morning, and this was when I was in Asia and Thailand, I would just bawled my eyes out, literally bawled my eyes out. And then because I care so much about my work and I care so much about obviously my clients and making sure that they're okay, because I can't be crying as a coach if my clients are struggling, So I almost felt like I had to be someone that I wasn't with my clients because I wasn't doing well myself, but I obviously didn't want to disappoint my clients. So I would show up, but I would feel shitty showing up and I wouldn't want to show up, but I would still do it. And it just became this cycle of just not enjoying what I was doing, because why would I enjoy what I'm doing if I don't even feel happy where I am in my life, right? If I don't even feel like I'm making a difference, because that's how I was feeling at the time. I felt like I wasn't helping anybody. I felt like nobody cared about my content. I felt that I'm just putting out all this like content and whatever it was that I was doing at that time and not hearing anything. Like, I don't know if my content's helping. I don't know if people are reading my eczema guides, or I don't know if people are watching my videos. Like, I don't know that, right? And obviously, that's like a limiting belief because I get messages from you guys all the time that you are listening. But as a business owner who runs their entire practice on social media, this is just a mindset that we have. Like, it's like a negative mindset that us business owners have. But I was really struggling with that. I felt like I was comparing myself to other people. I had so many voice notes sent to my now boyfriend of me just like questioning my self-worth, questioning what the fuck I was doing. I even wanted to like shut my business down this year because I was like, well, if things aren't moving, I can't continue this. And luckily, like, I'm very, very grateful that I was living in Asia at the time, and Asia's super cheap. So it was like fine. Like, I had savings. I'm not so fucked up to the point that I like don't have a place to live. I still lived in a nice place because it was like $400 Canadian to like live in a nice one bedroom apartment in Thailand. But thankfully for that, because if I wasn't in Asia, if I was in Canada, that would not fly, guys. I would be back to my parents' place. And so with that, this year has been hard when it comes to like business side of things. And the reason why I was saying how I was in that toxic relationship last year, I wanted to touch on this, is my cup has been continuously empty since the start of my business, because I haven't done enough of emotional healing, inner child healing that I should have been. But because how I am as a person, I'm an overachiever and I probably work too much. That was my way of like getting through my problems. And so this year I worked a lot. But at the same time, I also didn't, because I always try to find a balance. But because with my work in the healing space, I'm always giving a lot of energy and I'm always holding space for my clients. I'm helping people heal, right? That's what I do for my work. And because I got myself in a relationship that was very toxic and abusive last year, even though it was a few months, every time I get myself in these situations, it takes away from my own cup. Right? I shared in a different episode where it's like you need to have space in order to heal your body, in order to heal your skin. But if you're surrounding yourself in a toxic environment, in a toxic relationship, then you're never going to heal to the fullest capacity. That is what I was experiencing, but with my business. So I wanted my business to do well, but because my cup has been so empty from that relationship that happened late summer, early fall. And then previously to that, I have another episode where I got myself into a different relationship that was also very toxic. Like, of course, the life has been sucked out of me. Like, since I guess my breakup with Phil, which was back in 2022. And I haven't had a chance to breathe because I've just been go, 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 go and working. And so no wonder this year in business has been so hard for me, right? I'm trying to create something out of nothing. Right? Imagine when you're trying to heal your skin like so badly, but your body is just like empty because you're putting so much into your work, you're putting so much into your relationships, you're putting yourself into everything else, then of course you're not going to have space for your own body to heal. And that's exactly what I experienced. I was putting out so much into other people that weren't helpful for me. I was putting out so much into having an image where I thought that people would like me more because I'm a people pleaser and I'm on social media, that it wasn't resonating and it wasn't working anymore. And, actually in September, I was writing an email newsletter that I never sent out. Yeah, because I was just not feeling like I was ready for it, but I actually want to read a part of the letter that I actually wrote, and I want to share this with you guys of what I wrote down. In the world of online business, especially on social media, there's constant pressure to show up. I always feel like I'm behind, not doing enough, and not providing enough value when life gets busy. I was caught in a relentless cycle of comparison, questioning everything I was doing. Is my content even valuable? Do people even care? If I miss a podcast episode, will anyone even notice? Will my business fall apart if I take a break? There were so many times I would draft a story on Instagram, then not post it because I convinced myself nobody cared. What's the point? I thought. I disappointed clients this year because they could sense I wasn't fully present. Gosh, I'm like getting emotional already. I felt like a failure and wanted to shut down my business more times than I can count. And the hardest part of it all, I felt alone. I battled with my own thoughts. Some days I would wake up and tell myself, it's a new day, everything will work out. I tried everything to feel better. I did my journaling practice, meditation, breath work. I even traveled to different countries, as you guys probably have seen, hoping that changing my surroundings would help me feel better. On the outside, everything looked picture perfect, but on the inside, I was struggling. But I didn't want people to know. So that's basically how I've been feeling this whole year. I basically kind of lost sense of who I was and I didn't know who I was anymore. I would wonder, if I didn't show up on social media to share tips with you guys on how to heal, who am I? Like, who is Julia? What does she do? What does she like? Who is she outside of just pumping out content and sharing tips on how to heal? Like, I felt like I was losing my sense of identity, my purpose, like everything, especially when I'm not hearing back, or especially when I'm not serving my clients to the full capacity as I could be because of how I was feeling about myself. I literally was just so lost this year. I was like, what am I doing? I went through a really horrible flare after I left Asia and I went back to Canada. That was a whole other thing. I went through a horrible flare, and that was a result of being around my family, which is really triggering, but also from all the built up of what has been going on in the past year. And because Vancouver has always been the home where I grew up, but also a lot of traumas, didn't have the best experience being in Vancouver. I think that started to show up on my skin, and I ended up having a really bad flare throughout the summer, which is now healed. We're all good. But I think one of the lessons I'm learning is if you don't address your emotions and you don't work on the root cause, it's going to show up somehow in some shape, way, or form. And for me, it's always been skin issues. When I'm stressed, when I'm dealing with emotions, it'll show up on my skin. Oh my gosh, I feel like I just shared a lot of things that I wouldn't like share to anybody. This is what I would write in my journal. And I'm sharing it to you guys. I had a conversation with my friend the other day, and she was saying how, don't be afraid. She knows that I've been like scared to talk about things, but she was like, you need to share these things because people want to hear and they know that you're human, and it's going to help someone that might be going through the same thing you are, feeling the identity crisis, not knowing who I am, not knowing what purpose I serve, tying my value to how successful I looked. Like, it sounds so fucking stupid that I would like see that. Like, I have to be successful in order to be valued. And this comes from my childhood because growing up, my parents had really harsh expectations on me. If I didn't achieve a certain thing, I would get beat for it. And so I think that's why now, as an adult, if I don't look successful, if I don't have a good job, if I don't make a certain amount of money, then I'm not worthy. So anyways, that's been, a bit of a life update. Now I'm working on my healing. I'm doing a lot of work. I see my therapist regularly. She's freaking amazing, like amazing. Has helped me so much with working through some of these traumas and emotions and stress. And this whole experience with my business too, being not where I want it to be at this time of the year, it's traumatic. It's a form of stress on my body that I need to continue working on. But I feel a lot better than where I was a year ago after doing a lot of the healing. I'm no longer in a toxic relationship. I have a very, very loving boyfriend who's very supportive and is like understanding, which is something that I always needed in my life, which is crazy because I understood the reason why I kept attracting toxic people into my life. And it's because I didn't do enough healing. And I'll get into an episode on that at a different time. I'm living in a beautiful house in Colombia with my family and my friends, and things are getting better. But the whole point of this episode was like obviously sharing my life update, but more importantly, I've written down some of the lessons that I learned from this whole experience of comparison and imposter syndrome, I guess, feeling not enough, feeling like nobody cares. And I wrote down 8 lessons. Number 1, never put too much pressure on yourself. You're doing enough. This is something I really struggled with. I constantly felt like I was not doing enough. I would do more and then I would feel like shit from doing more because of burnout. And I realized that, despite it being a hard year business wise, I have beautiful friends that I spent time with this year. Went to my best friend's wedding. I live with my best friend. I spent a lot of time with my friends this year in relationships. And at the end of the day, what is more important are your relationships, not how you look, not how much money you make, not how successful you are, not how many hours you work. Like, none of that matters. What matters is having good quality relationships. That is something I learned this year. Number 2, career goals are important, but what is more important are your relationships. Perfect. And that includes a relationship you have with yourself. You can be ambitious, you can have a monetary goal that you want to achieve every year. That's very normal. Don't be afraid of that. But you are focusing on that goal so much at the expense of yourself and your relationships, then that's something that you need to change. I learned it the hard way. I would neglect my friends to work. I would just focus on me all the time to make money, and it bit me in the ass many times when it comes to my relationships. And so I'm really learning that you can have goals when it comes to your career, but don't do it at the expense of your relationships. Number 3, never see failure as failure. Failure is a part of growth, or you will never learn. So even though I didn't achieve a lot of things I want to achieve this year, that doesn't mean I'm a failure, right? It means that I'm learning about myself. I'm learning I need to do more healing. I'm learning I need to fill my cup back up if I want to achieve that goal. Similarly, when it comes to your skin and your health, if you're not healing and you keep noticing flares, see these flares as opportunities for you to learn more about yourself, what you need to do. Every flare, every setback is a learning opportunity, and it's an opportunity for growth. Okay. Never see it as, why is it happening to me? It's like, okay, it's happening for me. What is the universe teaching me? Why is it making me go through another setback and another flare? There's always a reason. Number 4, doing more does not equal better results. Doing less is. And then in brackets, I wrote quality over quantity. This one is very difficult for me as someone who is an overachiever, overworker. I feel like doing more means I'll make more money, I'll be more successful, I'll get more clients, I'll da 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 da, fucking bullshit, right? What I learned is to slow down and providing quality value versus quantity. If you want better healing, if you want better results in your work, in your career, you need to have the space within you to provide that. If your cup is empty, you can't produce quality. You can't produce quality content, you can't produce quality work, you can't produce quality results. Number 5, comparison robs happiness. This one was a hard one. I'm always comparing myself to people on social media, other practitioners, other eczema coaches. Why is she doing that? Why is he doing this? Why isn't my content performing? Get rid of that shit, okay? Comparison robs happiness, and this is something I have to remind myself, is that everyone is so unique and different. People want to work with me for my personality, for my type of content. It's not going to be the same as another person's content who has completely different personality, completely different backgrounds, completely different energy. So why am I comparing myself to that person? I'm always going to draw the right type of clientele with my own business, and I just need to trust that. Same thing with you as well. If you are comparing yourself to someone else who is quote unquote seems to be doing better than you when it comes to your healing, which you never know that because you never know what someone else is going on behind the scenes. You never know what people are really struggling with. Clearly, right? And so don't compare yourself to other people when you don't even know their story. And you'll never know their story to the fullest because everyone carries their own baggage, carries their own traumas that they don't share, right? And so focus on you and only you. Eventually, your cup is going to be empty and you need to fill that cup up if you want to succeed. I think this lesson explains itself based on what I've shared this whole time. Everything in your external world is a reflection of what's going on internally. If you keep on attracting toxic people in your life, if you're not achieving the money that you want, if you're not healing, it all starts with you. So what is it that's missing within you that you need to fill in order to achieve what you're trying to achieve? Is it because you lack self-worth? Is it because you don't know who you are? Is it because you grew up in a family where there's a lot of chaos, a lot of toxicity, and so that's all you're ever used to, and so that's why you keep attracting similar experiences, similar people in your life. And so you have to figure that out for yourself, work on healing that, and then that's when you can start attracting positivity, abundance, prosperity, healing. A question that I asked my spiritual mentor the other day, I asked, how do you know when your inner child is healing? And she says that you will feel it in your body. You will feel good with your body and look at your reality. Look what's in front of you. If things are flowing in slowly, then that means you're healing. And then my other spiritual mentor said, you also know your inner child healing when it seems like nothing is really going on in your life, meaning there's no drama, there's no chaos, it's just peaceful. And sometimes people think peace is not normal. Like there needs to be always be something moving, some drama, some fight, or something going on. But true healing is when you're at peace. Everything is stable. Last one, stop associating your worth and who you are based on what you have, what you look like, and how successful you look. True fulfillment is knowing you are worthy and having a cup so full you are happy exactly where you are. Don't associate your worth based on what your skin looks like, based on how your hair looks, based on what makeup you put on, based on what your weight is. Cut that shit, okay? You're worthy just the way you are. And if you're someone like me who has been struggling with the sense of self-worth and feeling like I'm not doing enough, remember that people love authenticity. And when you share the vulnerable side of you, when you appreciate your flaws, show them off because we all have them. Nobody's perfect here. That is true worthiness. You know that you have so much to offer beyond what you look like, beyond the surface level stuff. It's about filling your cup back up constantly so that you can show up as the best version of yourself, as a loving mother, as a loving father, as a good friend, as a good sister, as a good brother, right? But when you feel empty, when you don't have anything to give, then you can't show up as the best version of yourself. And so this is something that I've been learning this past year, is learning to fill my own cup back up because it's been depleted from pouring out into my business for so many years and not slowing down as much as I should be and getting myself in toxic relationships. And so now that I'm filling my cup up, I feel a lot better in serving and showing up. Still a work in progress. I'm not perfect. I'm still a little scared sometimes, but you know, we're all learning out here. No one is perfect. Everyone is going through something. And sometimes sharing the vulnerable side of things and what's been really going on can make you feel a lot better about yourself because you're not alone. We're all on this journey together. And so, yeah, that's basically a bit of a life update. I don't know if this episode is going to resonate with anybody, if it's going to help anyone. I took a long time to even want to talk about this because I was so scared. I don't know. Being vulnerable is always very frightening, but I hope you found this episode helpful and you could relate to some of the things I shared today in today's episode of my own journey, my own life, and the lessons I shared as well. If you found this episode helpful and it really hit home and you resonated with this, please, please, please send me a DM and just let me know that it helped you and you want to hear more of Julia's life stories, I guess. I would love to hear from you and hear about how you're doing. I'm sure I'm not the only one having the same thoughts, going through the same struggles too. So, yeah, let me know. You can shoot me a message on Instagram. My Instagram handle is @juliachan.rd. And in the next episode, we're going to get even more vulnerable, I think. I'm going to be sharing my story. And actually, in the first episode of this podcast, I shared my story, but that was more about my eczema and TSW story. In the next episode, I'm going to be sharing about my story growing up as a child in an abusive family and how that actually affects my skin today, my health, and how I show up and my business and everything that I've been going through over the past year. It always links back to your inner child and your past traumas. And so I'm going to share with you guys. All right. I love you guys so much. And I will see you guys in the next vulnerable episode.